An influencer who described herself as a best-selling author and eight-figure business coach will spend the next decade behind bars for her role in a plot to kill her rivals. According to federal prosecutors, 35-year-old Ashley Grayson plotted the murder-for-hire scheme to kill her ex-boyfriend, her business rival, and a woman who criticized her business online. While seemingly at the top of her game, Grayson had built an online business promoting courses to help people start their own companies. She promoted herself as a best-selling author and eight-figure business coach who had helped thousands of people achieve financial freedom through her programs. And she seemed to be building a following online. But her online image wasn't what it appeared to be, as authorities say she then resorted to plotting a few murders. It began to unravel back in 2021 when Grayson had a falling out with a woman in Mississippi who had an online business similar to her own. According to federal prosecutors, Grayson believed this woman was creating fake profiles to criticize her and her business. But the women never met in person. The following year, Grayson decided to contact a woman she had worked with in the past from Memphis, Tennessee for a business opportunity. The woman from Memphis and her husband went to Dallas in early September of 2022 and met with Grayson and her husband. But this was no ordinary deal. Grayson explained to the couple she wanted them to kill her rival. And not just her rival, but Grayson's ex-boyfriend and another Texas woman who made negative comments about her on social media. Grayson even offered up a bounty of $20,000 for each of the killings. But what Grayson didn't realize was that couple had a secret plan of their own. They pretended to accept the hit jobs and pretended to agree to her terms, but they were secretly recording her to turn the evidence into police. On September 10th of 2022, the Memphis woman video recorded a call from Grayson, where Grayson confirmed she wanted her business rival killed as soon as possible and offered an extra $5,000 if she carried out the murder in the next week. The couple then staged a video to make it look like they had attempted to carry out the murder. According to prosecutors, the Memphis couple sent Grayson a video that showed police lights in the background from an unrelated incident. The couple reportedly demanded half of what was promised to them, which was $10,000. And while thinking the couple truly tried to carry out the murder, Grayson paid them the $10,000 for their, quote, failed attempt. But by July of 2023, Grayson and her husband were both indicted by a grand jury on one count of use of interstate facility and commission of murder for hire. Grayson and her husband pleaded not guilty to attempted murder for hire, and the case went to trial in March of this year. After the week-long trial, the jury convicted Grayson, but in a twist, the jury acquitted her husband. In October, Grayson was given the max sentence of 120 months or 10 years in prison. And because this is a federal case, she will not be eligible for parole. The acting U.S. attorney for the Western District of Tennessee issued a statement after Grayson's sentencing, writing, quote, "This was a 21st century crime where online feuds and senseless rivalries bled into the real world. The defendant tried to hire someone to murder a woman over things that happened exclusively over the internet. Fortunately, no one was physically hurt in this case, but the victim and her family still felt a severe and emotional impact as a result of the defendant's actions." I'm joined now by Detective Eric Barnes with Dallas PD. Eric, thank you so much for joining me today. What's your reaction to this influencer asking this couple to kill her ex-boyfriend, her business rival, and another woman in Texas who just made negative comments about her online?
After a few years of investigating murders, you think you've seen it all, and something like this pops up, and it just kind of shocks your conscience a little bit.
Yeah, and thankfully, no one was hurt in this, but the intent was there. And Ashley Grayson, according to federal prosecutors, had the intent to want these people dead. What do you make of her choosing that route as opposed to just letting all this disputes and this feuding that happened online, just letting it all go?
That was the one thing that was kind of shocking about this. The when you read the articles on this case, it sounds like well, she was negotiating somebody to like delete a social media account and not actually take a human life. I think that sometimes in the virtual world, disturbances and disagreements actually turn physical, but they were separated by miles. So it wasn't like she could just drive down the street and have access to these people. She had to actually put some time and thought into this. So she was well aware of what she was doing.
Mhm. And we've previously spoken about rap feuds that bleed into the streets, but this one is an internet feud that could have bled into the streets, I should say. What are your thoughts on the feud and how that kind of started on the internet, then escalated to what could have been a very violent and terrible ending?
One thing that's been common, it seems that the internet feuds often can turn very violent. You know, something as harmless as leaving a comment on someone's stream or someone's videos or posts can lead to someone getting killed. And it's a little hard to connect those two, but it's been a common thing that's been going on over the last couple of years. And it's just hard to believe that social media has taken that turn where it leads to violence.
And always with murder for hire plots and the stories that we cover with them, it always just kind of boggles my mind in a way for people who have so much to lose that are willing to risk it all just for this to happen. And then it kind of turns into them being thrown behind jail. What do you kind of make of Ashley Grayson in this case, who by all accounts had like a thriving business? She was an online persona and all this had all this stuff going for herself, all to just risk it all, be thrown in jail just because she couldn't get over this feud between these three people.
You know, the most challenging part of investigating murder for hire cases, your gunman or your person that's involved with the actual act, they're normally the first group that's targeted by law enforcement. So typically, if the case is going to have any success at all, you're able to get the actor that actually carries out the murder. But to be able to work a level beyond that and go and get the mastermind is what all investigators try to aim for. Those are the most difficult cases to solve and actually get to that part, because in the part where she sat back, she planned, she conspired, she drew up how this was going to be carried out. She also included the fact that she wasn't going to get caught, and she did everything that she could to kind of insulate herself from her perspective. But I think sometimes in these cases, the people that actually plan these cases, they're not criminals. And I think that actually worked against her. She tried to put together this elaborate plan, and from her day-to-day business, she's a social media personality, and she's not an actual killer.
And what do you make of this Memphis couple who kind of helped stop what had even happened? Instead of carrying out this plot, they went to the police instead.
Well, you have to know your characters, you have to know your actors, and she obviously had them drawn out to be someone totally opposite of who they were. You know, it's a risky thing to reach out to someone and ask them to kill somebody for you. So you have to very well know who it is that you're talking to and asking for that. For her to reach out and then fly them back, and then also to commit the act in furtherance. You know, they requested extra funding in lieu of carrying it out, and she gave them half up front. So she obviously trusted these individuals.
And why do you think she was so trusting of this couple not to even turn her in? Let lo and behold, one of them is recording her, turning this evidence over to the police. But why do you think she was just so open and brazen about just kind of wanting this murder to be committed?
I would say they may have had some conversations in the past about certain things. Obviously, she felt like they had some commonalities, some common grounds, and she could open up and confide in them. But that ended up being her downfall.
For sure. And are you surprised when the case actually did go to trial that Ashley Grayson's husband was acquitted on the charges, but Ashley was found guilty?
I'm actually not surprised. These cases are very complicated to work. If Ashley is the one that's negotiating, even if her husband is sitting there, if he's not the one leading these conversations and actually uh, trying to get them to commit to this verbal contract to commit this murder, and he's just present, his presence alone is not enough for him to be charged with this crime or actually found guilty. So it is very complicated in these cases to prove up all the elements needed to carry out this conspiracy.
And are you surprised she was only sentenced to 10 years given this conspiracy to kill three people? And she even made this payment to the couple for the attempt.
Well, in researching the statute, just for the conspiracy, if no one is injured, your penalty level is fairly low versus a significant change in that if someone is actually harmed or murdered. So, being that no one was hurt or killed during this criminal episode, her sentence reflects, a 10-year slap on the wrist for something because no one was actually hurt.
And a lot of us live our day to day lives a lot of times on the internet. And I know for viewers, for followers, it's very easy to kind of have this idea of this internet persona and this internet personality that you may see on your For You page or on your timeline and that sort. But then, we've been seeing kind of a lot of cases that have been coming up recently of these social media personalities and influencers who do commit these terrible crimes. What do you kind of make of just the whole internet persona and then kind of the real person that is behind this platform and behind this camera phone as well too?
I think with internet personas, people can kind of get lost in becoming this larger than life figure and trying to maintain and keep up with this image they created behind a keyboard. And I think it becomes very disturbing when an individual actually loses who they are in real life and get caught up in this virtual world where they feel like, okay, I am this person and someone is being disrespectful to me. So how do I address that? And I think it's a thin line across, I think patrons of social media need to be aware, and that safety is an issue. That when you're leaving what you may perceive to be a harmless comment, someone could take it a different angle and actually want to cause harm to you.
And would you say in your experience that working a murder for hire case as to opposed to a murder case, do you find any differences kind of in investigating these types of cases, especially when the intended victims aren't dead?
Yes, you know, in the murder for hire, it's a very specific type of incident where the shooter necessarily doesn't have a motive to harm someone. Their motive may be financial gain or something that they've been promised that's going to help change their life. And the person that has that deep hatred or deep anger and the passion kind of driving the offense is someone that's one step removed. So that they have all the motivation in the world for this individual to be hurt, where your shooter may not have that same motivation. And so sometimes that is a weakness that law enforcement tries to exploit, that, this wasn't your beef. This wasn't your issue. You weren't actually affected by these comments on social media. And they will use that to try to get the shooter to roll on the person that actually paid them, the mastermind. But in this case, the people that were hired to actually carry out the murders did the right thing.
And thankfully, they did do the right thing. Are you surprised by the amount of money that she offered to this couple? $20,000 to kill three people. I mean, not to say that, she should have been offering millions of dollars. She shouldn't have been doing this in the first place. But are you surprised that she offered this amount of money given what could have all happened?
Yes, I think that, looking back on it, $20,000 um, ultimately is what cost her 10 years of her life. And to think that you can put any dollar amount on someone else's life is kind of alarming. But she was willing for them not only to do it once, but three different times. And I think that speaks very largely to her character as an individual.
Yeah, very, very twisted case indeed. Detective Barnes, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Before we sign you off, though, is there anything else about this case overall that you would like to add?
I think that this case, and just looking at it overall, so many times we are on the opposite side of this case where we're knocking on someone's door, informing their family that their loved one has been killed. And, deeper into the investigation, you find out that it was a senseless meaning. So this is actually a win, I think. This is a time that law enforcement can celebrate that they actually came across some good citizens that were willing to step up and do the right things, and she was able to be taken off the street before someone lost their life. So kudos to law enforcement and also to the couple that reached out.
All right, Detective Eric Barnes, thank you so much for your insight into this case. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's unclear at this time where Ashley Grayson will be serving out her federal sentence. Online records show she is not in custody with the Bureau of Prisons. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.